Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Charm They Can't Replicate, Creating a Store That Invites Wonder, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2026 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
We're getting the thumbs up. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out to our session today. We will be talking about the charm they can't replicate, creating a store that invites wonder. So at the end, we're going to have surveys, both online and paper copies. If you would like to let us know what you think about today's session and other sessions, our session will be recorded online. If you could silence your phones, and then at the end, when it's time for comments and questions, if you could raise your hand, and then a microphone will be brought to you so we can make sure your question's included on the recording. And then a big thank you to Ingram, our lead sponsor of the event, and all of our other sponsors for making today possible. As you know, we've been in a lot of these sessions. We will be following our antitrust guidelines. So both in our panel and with our comments and questions after, we will not be discussing price or pricing policies, boycotts, or dividing up the market. So by the end of the session today, we're going to hopefully identify a few multisensory design elements that can help tell your bookstore's story, determine what projects can be DIY'd or what is best to hire externally, and understand how charm is incorporated into the customer experience. We'll do a little introduction and kind of head in, and then we'll have comments and questions at the end. But I am Natasha Meyer. I am the owner of The Well-Read Damsel. We are Wisconsin's first romance-only bookstore. We started as a pop-up. My romance-only girlies are over there. We started as a pop-up in 2024, and then we opened our brick and mortar mid-June last year.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Morell. I'm from Middleburg Books in Middleburg, Virginia. Yeah, there's my crew over there. Thank you. So we are about an hour outside of Washington, D.C., and we're a general interest bookstore, about 1,000 square feet, small but mighty. And we've been open since the fall of 2023.
And good morning. Oh, let me pull this close. Good morning. I'm Dr. Eliada Griffin L. First, would like to extend a very warm welcome, or maybe not too warm, to the city of Pittsburgh. I'm the co-founder of the Young Dreamers Bookstore. We meet children at their dreams and reading needs. We are the only fully children's bookstore in the city of Pittsburgh, and co-founded with my husband, Dr. Nezakari Griffinell.
So today we're starting with, what can we do in our stores to make our stores stand out in the landscape of big box stores, big online retailers? How can we keep customers coming back to support us when maybe they can find books and other things priced a little bit cheaper elsewhere? I think one of the biggest things that all three of us talked about when prepping for this call was giving them a reason to choose an in-person experience. I think especially since COVID, society as a whole, we have a lot of social anxiety. Getting people off their couch and into your space can be a difficult challenge. And I think all three of us have tackled it different ways, but I think, Mary Beth, if you want to talk about what you've done in your store.
Yeah, so again, I started about 2.5 years ago, and Middleburg is a town with a population of 700. And so I knew that we were going to have to be a destination, right? We are in Virginia horse country, Virginia wine country. There's definitely a lot of visitors to our town, but it really needed to be a place that was, worth making a trip for. And it's interesting, my brother is a chef in Chicago. And so I kind of came to it with this idea of, and it had a lot of conversations with him about how you create a space that people really want to visit, right? And so I actually worked with the team that he used to create his restaurants to kind of help me vision board this. And I wanted this cute little English Village bookshop. We're in a building from the 1790s, kind of meets shop around the corner. I always knew that I wanted it to be this, and I think you can see it on the slide, this deep teal blue. And I was talking to the designer, and she said, okay, so what do you want the visual element to be? And I was like, books. And she's like, no, like, what do you want your like Instagrammable thing to be, that like the visual element that draws people as soon as they walk in? And it turns out this light fixture that you see in the slide is actually from Wayfair, and it's like really inexpensive. It looks really, and I couldn't believe how cool it is. And then she's like, and then we should put constellation wallpaper on the ceiling above it. And so it's like this constellation up above it. And we painted the whole place this river blue by Benjamin Moore. We get asked about that color all the time. And none of this was particularly expensive, but it really just makes the experience pop. Like it just really, yeah. And the other thing that she said, again, sort of with the restaurant eye, she's like, okay, never underestimate the power of a bathroom that people will talk about. So I'm like, okay, okay. So we have this like secret garden bathroom, which is basically wallpaper with this really cool, garden design with some quotes from the secret garden. And people come out of there all the time and they're just like, oh my gosh, you've got to go in and see that bathroom. And that gets Instagrammed probably as much as the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's really important to create this vibe that people are going to feel warm and welcome, as you're thinking about the space. Yeah, okay.
I wanted to learn more about the bathroom. I was like, yes, come through. Beautiful bathrooms. We are still we're a pop-up and fully online. And so, Mary Beth, you said it so well earlier. We have the opportunity and we've enjoyed creating charm in the communities that we're able to enter. You're here in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is known as the city of bridges, but one of the things that oftentimes Pittsburghs tease of themselves is that they don't cross bridges. And so community members tend to stay in their neighborhoods. And so we learned that if we were going to find a community, we were going to have to meet them where they are. And what that meant is how we're able to curate a reading and learning experience, sometimes in the most unusual places. So you're walking past funnel cake and I don't know, ices, and then there's a carpet with pillows for your children to sit and to have a cozy story time, or to be able to create softness and intrigue in places that are expected to have a certain type of behavioral norm and hence isn't always welcoming to young dreamers or young children. So one thing that has become really important to us in order to create spaces of charm is to be very kinetically inclusive and very audially inclusive. We are a children's bookstore. Children they have energy of all levels. And so we encourage them to be still. We encourage them to yell, to sing. We encourage them to run in circles. We encourage them to twirl. And we encourage motion and movement in all of our activities and story times and try to work with the spaces that we're in to make that possible. And the second quick thing I would mention is that we're also an educational social enterprise. And so we're academics by training, we're educators by training. And so we realized that there was a great opportunity to work with our community members in co-thinking and co-creating techniques of infusing reading into every type of experience. And so we run what we call dream labs and parent labs, which are experiential places to co-create fun book-centered activities with parents or with caregivers or community leaders. And we have found that has attracted folks into an in-person experience in a really unique education-driven way.
I love that. I think that kind of leads into like creating buzz and loyalty with our customers. And I think for us, our big thing, we've leaned so heavily into not only the design of our store, but our events. So because we started as a pop-up, we kind of came with an events first like mindset. And my biggest thing, we do book clubs, we do the author events and Q&As, but we really strive to create new and exciting events that people aren't going to get in other stores in our area or with online shopping. We just on Friday, crazy to be here after this, we just hosted 800 people with our local hockey team, the Milwaukee Admirals. We had 12 author signings. They let us into the stadium about 3 hours before the game. So all of our readers got to come hang out and then all go watch the hockey game together. We've also done sword yoga. There's an online company called Weapon Up, and they integrated sword practice and yoga. And as you can imagine, a lot of the fantasy lovers in the world really are drawn to the idea of working out with a sword. So we hosted 400 people for a massive sword yoga class and flew in this team. We've also done like really small events too, where it's book bedazzling, or a local author, she has taught book like edge painting classes. It's like spraying, but you use a paintbrush. And that's as little as 10 people. So creating events that people, one, are posting about because they're excited about it and it's unique, but also knowing that like when we post an event that it's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and they're going to want to come back. So maybe in the future it's an author they haven't heard of, but they've been to our other events before that are authorless and know, okay, I know it's going to be a good event. We'll show up. And I know, Mary Beth, you have done like supper clubs in your store.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we don't do anything that like crazy. Swords are not involved at Middleburg Books, but it does seem like most of our most popular events focus around food. So I don't know what that says about our community, but no, I mean, I think honestly, one of the buzziest and almost easiest things that, well, it's not easy because it's a logistical thing, but we, once a month, we host a supper club. We choose a cookbook. 20 people sign up. Again, you can see, I think, oops, back one. Anyway, but we sort of turn the shop into a little bistro, and we clear off one of the tables for the books, and it's a potluck supper. There's a sign-up sheet, and 20 people cook from the cookbook. And it's just been the neatest thing. It's been a real cross-current of people in our community, tiny community, and they didn't necessarily know each other before. And it's become like kind of the hottest ticket in town. We sell out in like a half an hour or an hour. I mean, it's a crazy thing, but it's just a really wonderful way to build community. We also kind of lean into a lot of community partnerships where we have hosted authors at a local winery. And so there's this amazing place called Green Hill Winery where we had Kate Quinn, we had Beatrice Williams, and it looks sort of like a cathedral, but it's like in the wine barrel room, and it's just the coolest space. And then one other thing that we've done is we've partnered with a farm and event space, and we've done these what we call salon dinners, where we have, again, hosted authors. We've did Kate Quinn and Joe Piazza. And for Kate, we took the book, The Briar Club, and we built a whole menu around this book, which, as you may know, is about women in a boarding house who are really creating community around food. And so we built out a whole menu, and one of the things that they all share is sun tea, and one of the favor was sun tea. Everybody took home sun tea jars. Anyway, so just really, again, building that community over food through relationships has been just one of our real secret sauces at Middleburg Books.
Oh man. One of the things that I love hearing as I'm listening to Natasha and Mary Beth is just the power of partnerships and the power of collaborative work to create such unique charm. And I think of, in my full-time job, I'm an entrepreneurship professor at Robert Morris University. So being amongst literally in a conference of entrepreneurs is very it fills my whole soul. But I think about what we talk about when we talk a lot about integrated thinking and how you create incredible fusion points between these diverse areas of knowledge that create such unique experiences. We love to continue with that experimentation. Right now, we're launching something new in this 2026. The August Wilson Center, where you all went for the opening reception, we now have a year-long residency there. They call it an educational residency. And so the Young Dreamers Bookstore is now there every month to create what is called the Read to Dream experience. And their first one launches this Saturday, but what made it so special out of nowhere is that the chair of the Governor Josh Shapiro, his advisory council for African American Affairs, reached out and said, "Hey, can we join you?" And we said, all day, let's do this, come through. And so now the commissioners of this council will be our guest readers all throughout the afternoon. It takes place this Saturday. If you're still hanging around Pittsburgh, please come and join us there in August Wilson. from 11 to 2. And I think to myself, wow, how exciting is it to see these intersections between individuals of unique walks of life, such as the individuals on this advisory who will be engaging with 3 to 10-year-olds around some gorgeous titles that we can't wait, and the whole experience that will create, and just the collaboration that is created through such cool partnerships. So yes, definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads to like our final point of just contributing to something bigger. And I think you both do a really great job of it. I think at the heart of it, like, yes, we love the books, but this is about our customers and the communities that we're able to foster and develop. And I know like my community in Milwaukee means the world to me. So like to be able to create experiences where they feel like they're also contributing and it's not just them attending, but like they're a part of this experience, I think is really important. And then, okay, multi-sensory experience. So something that a lot of us had very similar things when we were talking about beforehand. But what can we do on our store that maybe we're not thinking about that kind of touches all of the senses? I think the first one that was very important for me was consistency across everything. Somebody once said to me, like, you're going to find your brand really annoying because you look at it all day, every day. And sometimes you might feel that way, especially if you're like on Canva a lot and your brand kit colors are just staring at you and you just can't stand them anymore. But they are your business. Like that is what makes you stand out. So when people see our posts and they see the pink and the red and the blue, they stop because they know it's one of our posts. And same with our store. So for me, the biggest thing was consistency across everything. So we started as a pop-up. We still do pop-ups. Every pop-up event is going to look kind of like our store. We're going to have our store colors. We're going to have little details that remind them of our store. You're also going to get that across social media and with our merch and in our storefront. So, that's our pink hallway there. So everything's pink and red. Our color is Priscilla Pink by Sherman Williams. And then we recently did our Damsels After Dark room. So being a romance-only bookstore, we have now a fantasy and dark romance room that we opened in January where we got to play with a little bit different side of our brand. Our brand before was very like pink and fun. And this, we got to bring out a little more of the like spicy, dark romance side of us. But the multi-sensory experience. So for us, when we opened, we worked with a local candle company to create our scent. We now have 3 scents with them. They're sold exclusively through us. And all day long, we have a candle warmer warming the candle in our store, spreading the scent. And so a lot of customers will buy the candle, and when they read at home, they light the candle and sit with the candle because it kind of takes them back to the bookstore, which I think is really sweet. And it's also something that our original candle is called the Damsel. It's kind of like a fun, fruity scent, which very much goes with the vibe of our store. We have a few others. We have the Woodsman and the Spice. The Spice is over there. But they get to experience that at home. And when they walk in, it's like the first thing that they smell when they take in the store. And then I think lighting was something we had in common as well. Our lighting, we wanted it to be like focal moments. So we have bow chandeliers in the front. We have this like very fancy chandelier in our dark romance room. And again, they were not expensive at all. They were, a couple $100 altogether. But having that very like warm, fun kind of glitzy lighting really set the mood in our store.
And the music's important too. I think there's definitely like a vibe with the music that, you want it to kind of be on brand as well. And I'll just give a shout out to candle warmers are a really good idea. Lighting candles. We just had a small fire in our store. That Christmas greenery that you see behind those ladies with the Middleburg Books bag caught on one of our candles. And just a lot of smoke damage. We've been closed for 6 weeks. So another little tip is know where your fire extinguishers are and make sure your staff knows how to use them. Ours was it was under the counter, but it was hooked in, and our insurance adjuster had put it in there, and I couldn't get it out when I needed it. And we had a hero who grabbed the other fire extinguisher, and he just, unloaded it. Anyway, okay, completely off topic. Candle warmers, good idea.
Yeah, and candle warmers have timers, so you can set, it'll turn off automatically, which for someone who is all over the place, that is perfect because you also won't start an electrical fire. So it's great. Yeah.
This is our tip. This is our tip here. Yeah.
I told Mary Beth that she is a true bookstore veteran after this. There's nothing she can you overcome a fire. Who's going to tell you something? You got this for life. But respect. So with, as I mentioned earlier, because we're a children's bookstore, the emphasis of sensory oftentimes is we're curating this multisensory experience that is going to capture and hopefully in a prolonged way capture the attention of young people. And we are talking about school-aged children. Our books target children between the ages, we say 0 because they're also for in utero. So we do have a baby shower movement where folks will buy books, particularly for baby showers, but up to 10. And so as they're walking in, it is about very much, as I mentioned before, being kinetically inclusive, but then also how we are able to invite them to be tactile and to use their hands and to be able to use tools and crafts in order to be expressive. And so a big part of our reading experiences does infuse art. It does infuse some sort of craft that is intentional and infused into the reading time itself. So for example, this upcoming Saturday, we've created what is called a dream compass, which is basically a sort of artistic canvas that they could decorate themselves and they could place their superpower in the center. But what it will also do is guide them throughout the different reading pods through which it will also be decorated with an additional something, emblem or sticker by the guest reader. And that is something that they get to go away with. We create a lot of tools such as dream canvases is another one for both parents and educators to be able to be engaged experientially in the work and in the joy of reading and to also walk away with something beyond the book. Secondly, I would say in terms of multisensory, as you probably pick up, we're bright, we're super bright on purpose. And we go for I don't even know what color orange this is, but we go for the orange and we go for the purple in order to capture the attention of those who are young dreamers at heart. We're also very intentional with the word dream. And we wanted to create a bookstore that was aspirational for children. When they read the books, they learned lessons that inspired them to be creative and thoughtful, that inspired them to love and want to be loved, that inspired them to want to be problem solvers and change makers. So the Young Dreamers Bookstore is called that intentionally, and it is our goal to create a dreamocracy of which we are inviting young dreamers at heart, old and young, to come and join us in building that up. And so we use a word very intentionally so that when people see it, when they see our big old orange giraffe, it's a signal to where dreaming is taking place.
Oh, I love that. That's so special. I think so we're using sight, we're using smell, we're using all these senses. I think one of the biggest ones for me when I was looking at my store too, something we may not always think about is again, like the Instagrammable moments. Like how is our store coming across on social media? Because there are hundreds, if not thousands of people out there that will do the marketing for you if you kind of set up the experience for them. In the social media talk yesterday, I think one of the panelists said something that was really interesting where everyone's looking to romanticize their life. And so I didn't know that before, but now I love that. And I feel like in our store, we have a very quirky store. It's a little under 2,000 square feet, but it's several rooms. We don't have like a big space. And it was cheaper for me to just use what was there than to do anything else. And so I created like lots of little pockets of things that I felt were not only just beautiful visually in the store, but something that would come across on social media. And a lot of people say they almost don't know what to take a picture of because there's so many cute things. Not to like toot my own horn, but it was very intentional. And and I think one of the most important things for me is we started as a pop-up. We were only a pop-up for about 6 months before our store opened. So I went into this store as budget friendly as possible. So our sticker wall is there. We have several sticker walls now, but they're literally acrylic nail polish holders that we put on the wall. And we bought a $30 battery powered sconce instead of wiring it because who has time for that? And do our booksellers and I have to charge it every night? Yes, but it's pretty easy. We remember to plug it in and we're good to go. And then our big thing, again, you're going to get sick of your brand, but other people won't. We had a weird wall. Didn't make sense to put shelves there because it's a passageway from 2 different rooms. And I kind of felt like it'd be a great focal point for our events and also looking for that moment that people want to have in a bookstore that they can take a picture of and be able to recognize it across all of social media. And so that's when we painted our mural. Again, things do not have to be expensive to make a big impact. We were quoted like $2,000, $3,000 by several artists to create a mural. And I wanted to support them, but we just didn't have the funds. And so we hired a graphic designer, gave her the specs of the wall. For about $300, she designed the mural. And then with a sample can of paint, a projector and pencils, and $1 paintbrushes, my friends and I spent 5 days painting this. None of us have an artist background. You can color in the lines. You can trace a mural. Fun fact though, don't choose red, because several artists told us after that red is the hardest color because it needs so many coats. I learned that the hard way. Understand why they get paid the big bucks. But now this mural is something we have on totes, on t-shirts, on stickers, on postcards that people like across the world have been buying. It's also something that when people are scrolling, they stop and see it because it is like very recognizable. And it gets lots of people coming to our store looking for the mural. And it's all just different things that represented our store and our journey to a storefront in our city in Milwaukee. The mural is the big one. So the bag, the big one on the left, like towards the letters, that is the mural itself on the wall. And then, it's an example of just on our merch. Yeah.
I would just piggyback on that. We found a graphic designer who was still an art student who did a number of, really, and you won't be able to see it, but like a little box in front of our store. And, she charged us, I didn't realize actually the first time she did this, how little I paid her in relation to what it was actually worth. And I have since, we're going to do prints of her stuff and sell them. But really you can get creative in who you reach out to do artwork, to help your brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we are learning that is really powerful to us is that as we are growing, and again, as I was sharing with Natasha and Mary Beth, as we are figuring out our, we are sensing that we're at a crossroads now of exploring what our next era would be in terms of a brick and mortar, or in terms of curating some sort of physical space that people are entering. And so we have invited partnerships like with the August Wilson Center, or at one point we had short-term pop-ups at the Everyday Cafe in Homewood. You're looking for good food, that's a good place to go. So as to simulate that. And a lot of that has been based on simulation, on creating that experience, even when temporary, and partnerships have been wonderful for that. The State of Black Learning, which is a large national conference that attracts 1,000+ people every single year, that takes place here. The organizers, who are the leaders of the Urban Academy Charter School, were so wonderful as to make us their resident bookstore for that conference. And so that means they would fit out a entire, like a room within the Sheraton in the South Side, and we would then create an in-person bookstore experience there. And so again, realizing that, okay, there may be limitations within ourselves, but what we're able to do by experimenting with space and location through our different networks, and by reaching out to different people and community leaders here in the city, has made a really big difference.
I love that. I think also one final point too, like some of this stuff may not come naturally to everybody, and that's okay. And Mary Beth, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what it was like working with a designer to make your space.
Yeah, I mean, so I have had a really clear idea in my head as to what I wanted, and had no idea how to execute that. So again, I worked with someone who was able to take what I had in my mind and really put it in a way that it could be built out. And it was, and oftentimes, and now I'm leaning into like friends, like, what do you think about, like, I have, people that with a really good design eye, what do you think about this particular, shelving situation for our sidelines? Or, and I think you can just lean into those people, those creative people in your world. I think everybody loves to have bragging rights to help an indie bookstore. So, I think I paid the designer early on, but the other friends have just offered free design advice, which is really great.
Yeah. Book people are crafty people often. Yes. So like when we're doing new displays and stuff, we often turn to our customers, and they love it because, again, it gets to invite them to be part of the experience. And then Eliana, really quick, do you want to talk about setting up the story time educational experience so that they can translate that same feeling at home, like at home story times?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have learned that, in preparation for this panel, I thought a lot about charm. And I was like, what is charm? And I know Webster might say something. I don't know. I didn't read what Webster said. But I thought about how would I define charm? And I define it as your authenticity that is beautifully packaged in warmth and intrigue. That is charm. And when I think about what we do, that's what comes to mind. We are constantly trying to create a space where the child could be authentic to themselves, but where they are warmly invited to be authentic to themselves. And then where they find the discovery of themselves increasingly interesting, that they actually find that they are really interesting. And so that includes the story time itself is very interactive on purpose. Stories that could be very short can lead to story times up to half an hour plus, because we are infusing constant questioning and the Socratic method and a lot of conversation all throughout the story. We have our dream pauses where we invite young dreamers to empathize with the character and to see themselves in the book and to articulate what they would do if this was their story. We also have the activities, as I mentioned before, when BNY, the Bank of New York here in Pittsburgh, when they invited us to be their resident bookstore for their Take Your Child to Work Day. And I thought to myself, man, there aren't going to be too many kids there. Everybody brought their children to work that day. And we had to create an experience, not only in the bookstore with the reading times, but then also with the dream labs. And so that has meant creating an interactive experience where both child and parent can co-learn together. And we have to be really intentional as to how we are still light and bright and amusing and whimsical, but then also, okay, parents, here are top tips that you may consider. Here are some websites, here are some resources, so on and so forth. And so we found that to also really make the experience as we're moving throughout the city and in some parts of the country wonderful. And the last thing I will say is trying to be smart about how we utilize space whenever we go, and still, regardless of what the surroundings or what the environment is, how do we still create softness and warmth where we have been asked to sit. So down to the texture of the pillows, the texture of the rug, the texture of the cloth. How do we arrange books so that it's open and more young people could enter? And how do we make it so that young people don't feel as if they have to censor themselves, but that they could be curious and silly and so on and so forth. And so a lot of those both curated, but also pedagogical considerations go into those experiences.
Oh, I love that. I was a nanny for a long time, and I want you to come to Milwaukee because it just sounds so special. I wish we had something like that in our area. It just sounds really like a special experience. Oh yeah, it may not come naturally, and that's okay. Our final portion is customer service. Part of creating the charm is our interactions one-on-one with our customers, both with us and our booksellers. And here are some of the ways that we kind of help foster that charm with our interactions with customers. Shelf talkers are big in our store. We made cute little shelf talkers. They match our brand. And through them, we, like the one pictured here, we sell 30 of these books a week. It's been a book that's been out for 3 or 4 years now. It's led to an event with the author. It's led to pre-order campaigns, just because our one bookseller was so passionate about this book and wrote it was something about Bridgerton on the, she knew what buzzwords to use. Something about Bridgerton on the shelf talker. And so sometimes when you're having those busy moments and you can't always interact with every customer, the shelf talkers help kind of carry on that brand and carry on that experience when you can't always be there. And then staff picks, we have every bookseller in our store, including myself, we have a staff pick shelf. And so something that we kind of talked about beforehand was it's nice because somebody can grab a book from, say, our bookseller Ashley's shelf. And if they really loved it, then they know when they come back next time, they're probably going to like something else on her shelf. So again, when we're not able to have those one-on-one conversations, they kind of have places to go where they can still feel like we're help guiding them to their next book pick. But ultimately, like, it's just knowing your inventory. And I don't know if either of you want to talk about anything you do in your store.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that we do is put together curated rails of books. And one in particular that's a little unique is my husband had a long career in national security. And so he has, Michael's national security picks. And there's a whole lot of retired State Department, CIA, military in the area, and they love his picks. That's like, and so we sell a lot of those there. And then, anytime we do displays that we're big in our part of the world of like horses and foxes and wine. And, and we put those out there again, because they have those shelf talkers, because they're curated, that they tend to sell really well. And again, like anything our booksellers love, we just can't stop talking about them and they just go. But we do try to put those shelf talkers all over the shop. Yeah.
We have learned that the innovation, the make or break for us is in being able to help our customers navigate the collection. And so we make a really big effort, and we could do this because they're children's books and they're great reads. Man, sit down with a kid book. It will teach you something wonderful about history and people. But we make an effort to read every single book in our collection, every single book in our collection, everyone, because we ran an experiment. We had a pop-up and we're like, you know what? Let's not say anything. Let's greet them and give them the pitch and like, hey, welcome to the Young Dreamers bookstore. And then leave people to their devices and see what happens. And what would happen is that folks, as we do, will judge the book by its cover and they'll graze over it and they'll look and they look confused. And then eventually they may leave or they may pick up one that they're familiar with. And we realized that a really critical component was approaching them and saying, hi, can you tell us about your dreamer? Like, are you shopping for a young dreamer in mind? Who are they? Let us know who they are. Do they love to? And they would tell us anything. Oh man, she is something else. She's so smart. She's 5 years old, but she's already 50. Like they just start talking about, or this is for my nephew and he's really shy, but he loves art. And it is just so heartwarming to see how we as humans talk about the people we love. And we don't hold back. So as they're talking, we're listening. I mean, pure qualitative research for any researchers in the room. We're picking up the cues and we're picking up the details and we're like, you said that they like a good challenge. Well, how about this book here, Jabari Tries, where he's trying to create some sort of drone, but he can't quite get it right and realizes that he really needs the help of who he thought was his annoying 3-year-old sister. Or, oh, it sounds like she loves to be unique and vivacious. How about Becoming Vanessa, where and that is knowing our inventory has become kind of the strategy by which we're able to bring adults who are looking to shop for their young dreamers into this world of dreaming. So now we're thinking about how we're able to use technology in a way that helps us to best curate this information and enhance its precision without losing the charm, without losing the softness and the intimacy of the experience.
Yeah, I think listening to our customers is so important. I think being romance only, there's a wide variety of romance. So our biggest thing when people come in is they can ask for anything and it's judgment free. We're going to ask them a lot of questions about what they're looking for when they're asking for recommendations. But I also think it's getting to know your customers that are coming back every day. Granted, we can't know everybody. We try, but knowing, okay, Dana, she loves a dark romance. Maybe the MMC is a stalker. And when I'm looking at the new releases that week, I'm going to message her and say, Dana, I have a book that I think you'd really like. And then she's going to come back. And again, it just keeps growing that relationship. Also too, when I'm scrolling Bookstagram and BookTube and all the things. And I'm like, oh, that one customer really loved that Mothman book. Maybe I only need to order 2 because maybe no one else in the world is going to want to read this Mothman book, but I know that Cindy is going to come in and she's going to love this book. So it's not necessarily I'm looking for the top sellers all the time. I'm looking to stock inventory that I know my people are going to want to read.
Yeah, I think, this extraordinary customer service that both of you all are talking about, this deep curiosity. There's a book, again, that's really intended for restaurants, but it's for anybody in customer service, called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's such, I don't know if some of you are nodding your heads. It's really an extraordinary book to really look into that extraordinary customer service that is at the heart of why people want to come back and really be part of your world and really come back and support your indie bookstore.
Yeah. And the greatest reward is when we will see families at the post office, in the Giant Eagle, that's our grocery store, in the Giant Eagle, and hear the children before we hear their parents. And the kids are like, mommy, 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 those are the folks. And oftentimes we're wearing our colors, so we're bright as all get out, and you can see us from the front door. We have a beautiful story where a little girl ran into us in the store, and she's pulling her mother's sleeve like, mommy, mommy, that's the guy who read to us. That's the guy who showed me that book. And my husband turned around and he was like, I don't remember your name, but I remember your dream. You wanted to be a marine biologist. And she said, yes. And then right there, and the mom was like, she will not put the book down. And at that point, right, it's like retirement. Like, we've done our job. We've done our job. There's nothing more to it. So that is the reward when we've done what you described, Natasha, when we've done that so well.
Yeah, I think the world can be a very isolating experience sometimes. And just to show somebody that you see them and you care from birth to, 99, I think is really important and part of that charm. But kind of in summary of everything we've talked about today, giving customers a reason to choose that in-person experience, having your brand kind of be consistent across all platforms. Every detail is an opportunity. It might come naturally or it might not come naturally, and that's okay. Know your inventory, and relationship building is part of the charm. And that leads to any comments or questions. Emma will come around with a microphone.
Hello. Thank you for the wonderful information. It seems like most of your stores are on the newer side, so I'm wondering if you potentially have any advice for a store that's been around a long time, is established, can't really repaint, or, our shelves are on the older side, not very aesthetically pleasing by today's standards, and if there's anything we can do to kind of improve it without spending a lot of money.
I think a big one for us is lighting. Lighting is very easy to swap out and pretty inexpensive. And I think it can kind of change a whole space. I think too, we have a lot of artwork hung up in our store. We work with local artists. We work with some of our vendors to get some of that fun bookish artwork. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we had talked about in our pre-call is something like a blind date with a book program, or some other program that is just new and buzzy, maybe a supper club, try kind of mix up your events a little bit to just bring a new spark to your place.
I mean, what we have been enjoying and what we've also been seeing our fellow bookstores do in the region is to exemplify and have their themed book nights, sometimes in collaboration with the Steelers, or in collaboration with, again, I'm just so intrigued by the unusual pairings. And so, I don't know. I know we love book with wine, but, what would be unusual? Book with
swords. I mean, swords.
There we go.
Yoga and swords.
I think those unusual pairings, we'll call it that. I think those unusual pairings are so cool. They're so cool. And it shows that books are everywhere, and they also deserve to be everywhere. And they need not be, what's the word I'm looking for? Siphoned off to the side and considered to be only in one space. They can be and should be everywhere.
I think too, different displays, if you have tables and you have shelves, you can curate fun. I mean, we did Halloween, we did Monster Smash. It's Monster Romances. We had little Halloween decor on the table, and it's a table we have all year round, so people are used to it. But every season, we kind of rotate it to be a different theme. You can do it with little tchotchkes that aren't, expensive to find, or probably you could find at your home,
Thank you all for this very charming panel. Mary Beth, when you were talking about the multisensory experience, you specifically mentioned like music is important, but I'd love to hear from you or all three of you a little bit more about how you use music in your stores to set the tone, if you do. We just a couple years ago started carrying vinyl at our store, and an old trick from when I worked in record stores is just putting up and now playing with whatever we're playing, which works as well as any shelf talker. But I was wondering how you all approached that.
You go first on that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, our store is very fun and romance. You get to really play into it. So it's a lot of Taylor Swift and pop music and things. And like, even like stuff from like 90s and early 2000s that like really make people walk in and they're like, oh, I love this song. Like it's an NSYNC song. Like it just makes them feel positive and happy and excited to be there. But yeah, I won't lie, it's a lot of Taylor Swift. But that's mostly because
honestly, it's kind of like a time of the day, kind of the time of the week thing too. There's a lot of Taylor Swift. I think Shane, who's here, said it best. Sometimes it's best when you don't necessarily hear the song or remember the song, but you just like remember the vibe. And so like oftentimes on weekends or on Sundays in particular, that'll be like more jazz or more classical. And then there's a lot of, I don't know, we have these mixes that we put together. But yeah, it's Spotify. So that's, yeah, it's like chill vibes, or you're in, your favorite bookstore, and there's just a good mix there. So, I can share some of the playlists, but it sounds like you are a much bigger expert in music than I am.
We like to tie in music into the learning experience. And so, we've been experimenting. And so the musicians that we might feature in the books, we have a great book about Winston Marsalis called Womp Womp Womp. It's like an awesome book of onomatopoeia. It's for the little ones. Oh my goodness, they stomp around crazily. But then we also love to feature his music when we have our pop-ups. We have a series, 2 books on Trombone Shorty, who is this famous jazz musician from New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans, and when my husband showed me the book, I was like, oh my goodness. And so we love to, and his music is live. It is wonderful, high energy, is great for kind of a festive, fun environment. And so we like to feature his music in the store. And so, true to it being an educational social enterprise, we try to tie in the music into the learning.
And I think too, like with events, it's fun to really play into that because the music can be part of the decor and part of the experience. So like during sword yoga, were we playing like the most dramatic fantasy music you've ever heard? Absolutely. And like Thursday, we have an unhinged book club every month. We read some pretty crazy stuff. On Thursday, we read Romanced by the Rat by G.M. Ferry. It is a Ratatouille inspired book. And so we played the Ratatouille soundtrack while the book club was going on. So
it's like so much
really fun. It is really fun.
Okay.
So yeah, just like having that be part of the experience, I think can be fun.
Thank you for this panel. I found it really useful. Knowing that you guys have done pop-ups, I'm pop-up only, and it's a lot of heavy lifting and exhausting physically. So how do you create that kind of charm and atmosphere in your pop-ups, especially when you're not the only vendor? Say you're at a community thing, it's open air, so music wouldn't work, but kind of some low-lift ideas that won't add to all the weight of the books that we end up hauling there.
I think something that both of us do is it's colors. Yeah. We have a pink table, pink tent, red, like people can find us from a mile away. We had a tailgate with the brewers last year, and we said, look for the pink tent. And we were the only pink tent in a sea of thousands of other colors. So I think colors play an important thing. Again, you can't always have music. You also sometimes only have one table, and you have to pack a lot on there. So I think colors for us has always been like our biggest focus.
Yeah, I can't agree more with we're bright orange, and it has worked. It has worked. I think also, when I think about just bookstores in general, I think something that is maybe understated, but it's so special to the bookstore experience are shelves and how shelves hold. And we have found arranging furniture outside, particularly in the form of shelves, like light shelves that could be arranged in a way to emulate a bookstore experience, regardless of what is around us, to be really important. We insert comfortable seats amongst the shelves, maybe a coffee table right in the middle of the grass, so as to kind of signal to those passing by that you are to enter. Like, we are outside, but you are to enter into this environment that is particularly being put together for the book lover or the book curious, so on and so forth. And so to your point about the heavy lifting, absolutely. That is undeniable. I'm pretty sure many of us, they were commiserating with me. I appreciated that. And that is something that has, at least on one end, has led us to try to consider what type of mobile storage or kind of low-hanging fruit, what type of storage units or what have you can we use that are easier to load and offload. We've definitely, recruited our 12 and 11-year-olds who can now hold a little bit more than an empty bag. It has to be like, grab that shelf. We need to go. But it does take a lot out of you. And we've realized that, okay, where maybe right now we can't control that heavy lifting, then maybe we could control the use of time around it. So how we make sure we fit in time for our own recovery, for our own rest, how we make sure that by the time it starts, we're not already weary and we're strengthened and we sleep well. Like really simple things like that at this point where we are still mostly pop-up. Absolutely.
And I think one thing too, Milwaukee, we have a lot of beer halls and beer gardens and breweries, and a lot of them are really dark, and that is not great for people to read books, and we're often the only booksellers there. So we do have little battery operated lights that just look like regular lamps, but you plug them in overnight, and that has kind of helped elevate our table and also make it visible, because that's very important when people want to read the back of a book, and it's mood lighting.
Hi. I come from a very small store. We're also attached to a coffee shop, and I'm kind of curious as to what your take is on when it's a super busy day, or if all of the seats are taken, having someone come into the shop and maybe seeing that there are no seats, or maybe the kids section is super crowded and they can't really get to the shelves, or they're just maybe feeling overwhelmed by how many people are in there, kind of how to connect with them in a way that makes them say come back when it's maybe not a Sunday morning or something like that.
Yeah, that is tough. We, especially at our opening, our store was kind of amazingly a madhouse every day. Something we started that is not always feasible for everybody, but we do sensory friendly Sundays. So once a month for 2 hours before we open, people can sign up for slots. It's a $10 fee, but it goes towards their purchase just to make sure that people actually show up. We have no music playing, low lights, and very limited customers. And that has been going really well for us because people want to come, but they get very anxious about coming because sometimes our store can be empty and sometimes it's a zoo and they can't always predict. Mm-hmm. But this, they know every month there's a time when they can come. And yeah, we keep the vibes chill. People can reach out to us if there's other accommodations they want to be made. So we just advertise that a lot in our store to hopefully encourage people to come back.
The only time that we encounter that is we have street festivals out in front of our shop. And so we put a book bouncer out in front, a bookstore bouncer. And basically it's, someone who's just standing out there saying, you know what, it is just like the children's section. We can't get any more kids in there right now. So, just chat them up and talk about, our fabulous small indie bookstore and would they like to come back or do they mind holding until the next group comes out? And that, that has really worked well for us. And people are really patient. They're really lovely about it.
What we are experimenting with in our upcoming Read to Dream experiences is we're used to having the large story times. And as much as I love the running and the twirling, it can become very overwhelming. We've seen kids walk in and freeze and say, I'm not walking into that, which we fully understand. And this is specific to a children's bookstore. So if it's helpful, I hope so. But what we are creating is that in addition to the large convening of story time, we're also centering what we call dream story pods. And so our readers or guest readers now hold space for a small amount of children at a time, maybe no more than 3 or 4. And where we set up the space so that that type of up close and more still and more sensory sensitive space can be created for those who would want to dive into the book but don't necessarily want to do it with 50 other kids around them. So you're welcome.
Hi. So my store was bought by new ownership about 4 years ago, and it came with kind of a name change and rebranding. And since then, we're starting to figure out kind of what our thing is, but it's very collaborative, and it comes with a lot of us kind of having different taste and different interests. So sometimes it's like with the music, we'll have one day and you're like one type of vibe, and the next day something incredibly different. So how would be a good way to kind of make consistency with all of us having really strong opinions and different things and all wanting to be like heard and seen?
I don't know. It sounds like you need an outside moderator. I mean, it sounds like, no, seriously. I mean, it sounds like you need to sit down with somebody and, kind of come up with, like, we have never done a mission statement, but kind of have like that, this is our vibe. This is our brand. This is what we want to consistently promote to the world. Because if people walk in and they don't know from day to day what the vibe is, I can imagine that would be confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think our like playlist is always called Upbeat Mix, but like when I'm in there, I'm listening to a lot of Cat's Eye. When my bookseller's in there, she's doing a lot of like 90s pop, but like the feeling of it is upbeat, fun, and welcoming. So I don't think it necessarily has to be the same playlist every day. I mean, you'd go crazy in there, but our booksellers all have a little variation off of like our main playlist. But I think it's figuring out the vibe, for lack of a better word, and the story that you want to tell with the music. Yeah. And I do think I own the store by myself. I make all the decisions. So I don't know how I just tell them that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question.
Hello. I love the use of the word vibe. It feels so all encompassing,
very professional
in a helpful way. And I'm loving the vibe of this panel. I really enjoy all of the kind of aesthetic discussions that you all have gone over. And I was curious if kind of beyond the moments that like feel memorable in store and maybe make you want to take out your phone and take a picture or whatnot, if there are any things that kind of prompt activity within your store. Obviously on like indie bookstore day or at events, we'll do lots of things where it's like, oh, here's a question and you participate and you get to see other people's answers or different things like that. But on a consistent basis, do you all have anything that you kind of have as a standard thing people can go and know will be in your store to participate with?
I would say for us, we've done it for a lot of events. So it's just because our store is so choppy and small, we don't have we'd have to give up like book space, but we have done letter writing stations, like love letter writing stations. I know the last chapter in Chicago has a really great example of this. They have their like book boyfriend wall. So it's just a little room. They have sticky notes. People can write their book boyfriend, stick it on the wall, and it's a photo option, but it's also that like sensory experience. So we did that for our 1 year anniversary, copied the last chapter. And, but we did it for like, what do you love about our store? And did it on a wall that we're still trying to figure out what to do with. And it was just sticky notes and people loved being able to contribute to that wall, and I got to read it. So it was sweet.
Yeah. When we reopen after our fire next week, we're going to bring the Polaroid in and take Polaroids of everybody that comes to the shop over the opening weekend and then have them write a little sticky note, stick it on. We have one free wall, and say, the reason that they either missed or love Middleburg books. And, or it could be, we're very dog friendly in Middleburg. So a lot of people bring in their dogs. So it could be them, or it could be the picture of their dog, or maybe both. But, that's what we would.
I was going to build off of that. We have, every time we have a pop-up or every time we have an event, we take a picture of the customer with the books that they have chosen, which is so cool because it tells such a cool story of the children's books that people are drawn to. We post those on social media, and what we did not expect to happen was for people to contact us and say, hey, I want my picture. And we were like, what picture? And they're like, the picture on the gram. Like, listen, I'm coming to pick up my book and I'm going to need you to take a picture. And we're like, Oh, and Nosa and I looked at each other like, is this a thing? And he's like, it's a thing. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. So it's become the Young Dreamers Bookstore, this portrait of what we call dream advocates, who as their, or if they're children, dreamocrats. Sorry, y'all. We could run this pun to the ground, let me tell you. Don't get me in a conversation one-on-one. So yes, and that has become a really fun space of engagement. What is also great, especially in a city like Pittsburgh, which is a lot like Milwaukee, people know each other. And so they'll recognize each other and then they will start to engage with each other. So a great way unintentionally of building community in that way.
Yeah, and I also think it's obviously you can't have everybody, but we do have customers that if they're wanting to fill out a shelf talker about a book we have on the shelf, like we do have shelf talkers that we'll give out. Again, they feel like they're contributing and they get to help sell a book that they love. And maybe it's a book that we haven't read, so we don't know like the best way to sell it, and they're going to sell it for us, which is kind of nice. Mm-hmm.
That's so nice.
Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that there is a survey if you'd like to take after this. There's paper copies if you need one. And again, thank you to Ingram for sponsoring today.
Thank you.
That was so fun.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!